Welcome, everyone. Another episode is upon us. I'm Zora, she's Meghan, and this is...
Got Next.
Okay, we didn't even plan that.
That was like Mad Libs almost, just went with the flow, went with it. It felt right.
I wanted to do some housekeeping right off the top, and I just want to remind people that you can interact with us in the comments on the YouTube version of these episodes. So if you got questions about anything or a topic you're interested in, make sure you put it in the comments and we'll try to answer it and address it in our next episode. We have a jam-packed day, so I want to get right into it. Meghan, there's a few matchups that you want to highlight today to start.
So many different matchups. I think first, unless you don't ever go on Twitter, X, whatever the kids are calling it nowadays, or the Instagram, did you see Ashlyn Watkins dunk, Zora?
Of course I did. And I loved it for so many reasons. Of course, like, okay, a women's college basketball player dunking, but it was the way in which she did it. It wasn't just in transition. You see Citron Price right there? That's a 6'7" center, okay? Like, this was a contested dunk that she did. She didn't have a lot of time to think about it, and it almost looked casual too. It's the third time she's dunked in her career. She's not new to this. She's true to this. It's just great when we have that. And just know that these athletes have the ability to do it. And of course, South Carolina got the dub too.
I watched like a bunch of different angles. I couldn't get enough of the content. When I was trying to find different angles, the best I found, Aaliyah Boston, our coworker at NBC Peacock, was at the game, and you can see her also jumping simultaneously with Ashlyn for the dunk. It's awesome. All the things. Look, South Carolina's rolling right now, and after that loss to UCLA, they have come out with a vengeance. They have won every single game by double digits. They've played ranked opponents. They beat Duke, obviously TCU last night, Iowa State, playing really well. What's impressive to me, Zora, is just the balance that they have right now. You know, you have 4 different players scoring double figures. Malaysia Flau'jae dropped 20 against TCU, a very good TCU team that was undefeated, by the way, who had beaten Notre Dame as well last week or 2 weeks ago. Just the balance, the fact that nobody in this game against TCU played over 25 minutes. And even players like Chloe Kitts, right? Like, she finished with 4 points, but she had 12 rebounds. I just love what you're seeing right now overall, the depth and the balance from the Gamecocks.
This is one of those teams, any given night, any player can go off, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm going to try to slow down Pow or Malaysia Flau'jae and we'll get the dub, because they have so many weapons, like you've said, multiple players scoring in double figures. Since they lost to UCLA, Meghan, the average margin of victory for the Gamecocks is 33 points, okay? That includes 2 40-plus point victories. They've got 2 wins over top 10 opponents. And of course, it's easy to say this after it happens, but like, sometimes you need a loss to recalibrate, to remotivate. And whatever South Carolina and Dawn Staley and the whole program has done since then, they're not just beating people, they're obliterating people. Good teams at that.
That's what you're supposed to do when you're a top team in the nation. It's how you respond, how you bounce back. South Carolina has done just that. Wildly impressed. And AP poll just came out for this week. They are 3rd in the nation. So still holding strong there. But it brings us to our next team that is absolutely killing it right now. UConn, hello. That game against Louisville, my goodness gracious. First off, I don't even know where to begin. It was great to see.
Obliterate, yeah.
It was great to see Azzi Fudd back out there. I know she went down in that game, but still to come out, knock down shots the way she was. She had gone, you feel for players, Zora, like when you deal with an injury. I tore my hip in college and missed a whole entire season. It's so difficult because basketball, really, when you're a young person and you play it at this level, like, it's your identity, and it's so much of where you get your self-esteem from. To get injured, to not have that connection is so difficult. So for Azzi Fudd to come back and play as well as she did early on, it was really exciting to see. Hopefully she's okay. But I mean, from top to bottom, I looked at Caitlin Chen breaking the ankles, going to the basket for the assist. But Sarah Strong, my goodness gracious, the freshman who has played with so much poise. Gino in an interview recently said that he reminded her of Brianna Stewart.
Like, what a compliment. What a sentence to be in with someone else.
And just everything she does, she's so poised, and that's what makes her so good. I mean, for her to drop 21 points and 8 rebounds against a really good Louisville team, what more do you want right now? She has started every single game her freshman season. She does not look like a freshman out there. And that's what's so good. I love her game. I love how poised she is. It's my new favorite word, I guess I'm using now, poised. I got to get a thesaurus and find another descriptor, but cool, calm, collected, Sarah Strong.
Yeah, I mean, her stats aren't freshman stats either. 16.7 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game. And you had the opportunity to sit down with her at Big East Media Day. Some really, really cool stuff. Let's go back and take a listen.
You're playing with Paige Bueckers, who's one of the biggest names now in college basketball. How is she as a teammate?
She's a great leader. Yeah, pretty much she's quick to let you know if you did something wrong or let you if you did something right. So great person, great leader.
What are you most looking forward to in your freshman year?
Just getting out there with, just new team, new environment, new coaching staff. Or like for me from high school.
Sure, of course, yeah.
That's what I meant. But just excited just for what's to come.
Do you have any pregame superstitions?
Yeah. I pray before every game.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
How long have you been doing that, your whole career?
Started in high school.
Okay.
And, just big games or any game, I just, say a quick prayer. Maybe talk to my dad, talk to my mom. But that really helps me, stay calm.
Keeps you grounded and everything.
Yeah.
Is there one player in particular, growing up maybe or now, that you like to model your game after?
I watched a lot of Maya Moore.
Yeah.
She was really good. I watched her. I watched all the UConn players are my favorites.
How would you describe Coach Oriama playing for him now that you're here?
It's not the same as it was on my visit. So, I mean, he was I'm not going to say he's not friendly, but, he's obviously friendly. He's, he knows a lot and he expects a lot, which is also good. So getting used to that, it's like someone that holds high expectations takes getting used to.
Got yelled at yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Called out. Yeah.
What can we expect from this UConn team this season?
We should be great, make it far in the tournament, hopefully win it.
Do you have those conversations as a team right now amongst each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. If we're in the locker room or just in someone's apartment, we just talk about it and know what our goal is as a team.
Mm-hmm. What does success look like for you in your freshman season?
Getting better for my sophomore season.
Okay.
Getting more confident and growing as a player and as a person for the next year.
Look what UConn has coming down the pipeline. They got to play at Notre Dame.
That's what I was just going to, yeah.
But also, they're playing Iowa State, neutral court, Mohegan Sun Arena, practically a home game. And then they got to play USC. So just their December schedule is insane. The fact that they were able to play that well against Louisville, out of this world. Sorry, just wanted to get my 2 cents in.
And here's one thing, because I know strength of schedule always comes up, especially towards tournament time. These big schools have been playing tough opponents. You want to talk about Texas. They played West Virginia. They played Notre Dame, USC, TCU. They're going to play UConn. We just talked about who UConn's going to play. South Carolina has had multiple top 10 opponents. These teams are playing each other. And obviously the conferences that they're in are tough as well. Let's do a quick preview, though, of Notre Dame, UConn. Notre Dame won on the road at UConn last season. This year, it flips. The game is in South Bend.
First off, that Notre Dame Texas game last week where
overtime, it was so good. I don't care who you're rooting for.
You didn't want it to end. First off, how good is Texas, by the way? Madison Booker is going to be such a good pro. It's unbelievable. Her game, her ability to create her own shot at her size, the way she handles the ball. Rori Harmon. I love how Layla Felia played off the bench. She's been hurt for Texas, but a player that was at Michigan, so Big Ten
and
fans.
And a different role for her. And so you have to give her props for stepping into that and being able to contribute.
And she was playing valuable minutes at the end of the game, which I thought was great. But Notre Dame, by far, Zora, I think it's safe to say the best backcourt in the nation. Olivia Miles, Hannah Hidalgo, Sonia Citron. We don't give enough love to Sonia Citron. She is so smart. She does everything right. She makes all the hustle plays. I love watching her. I love watching her defend.
Sonia Citron will be a draft pick. Neil Ivey calls her the silent assassin. Mm-hmm. And of course, you've got superstars like Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo, but I appreciate you giving her some love. Can we go back to the Hannah Hidalgo on the ground, just flipping the basketball back to what a highlight.
It was just it's just fun. You want to know what? That was a fun basketball game to watch, hands down, period. And then you have this UConn Notre Dame game coming up in South Bend, which is going to be hopefully rocking. I'm sure it's sold out, all the things. It's going to be a great matchup. Obviously, you bring in top name Paige Bueckers, Sarah Strong now coming in to South Bend. Caitlin Chen's playing so well. I think a really underrated piece for UConn because, again, she's smart and she has experience, and that's going to be key, especially early on when you're bringing in a point guard from the portal. You need to have somebody who understands how to play at a high level and can adapt easily to situations. And then, of course, other end, this is going to be some of the best guard play we're going to be treated to in the year 2024. What are you most excited about?
Well, honestly, it's just the game has to be played on the floor. I will be excited to see how Hannah matches up against Paige. I mean, you want to use the word poise. That's what Paige Bueckers is to me, her game. Like, she doesn't get flustered, but Hannah Hidalgo is trying to fluster people, right? So, like, what gives in that matchup? So I'm excited to see that. Excited to see what defense Notre Dame comes out in. They played a lot of zone against Texas because they felt like they could, pack the paint. And they weren't really worried about Texas shooting from the outside. Shout out to Holly, who tried to break the zone a little bit in that matchup. But yeah, and you love to see UConn trying to get some revenge. I do want to switch to your power rankings though, because with all these matchups, like, how have things shifted and moved and shaped for you since, all these great teams have matched up against one another?
Zora,
top 5.
This is starting to be a really difficult exercise for me because, the first couple of weeks, it's like, no one's really played anybody, but now everybody's playing everybody. And I'm so happy producer Natalie puts some
LSU has entered the chat.
Welcome to the chat, LSU. Look, they're undefeated. They beat Stanford in overtime. Like, it's, give the Tigers a little bit of love. On a side note, we played at LSU my sophomore year of college, and we actually won down there. They played Garth Brooks, Colin Baton Rouge every time out. And it was one of my favorite memories because I love that song. But anyways, just shout out to LSU for having a great home court environment. They're now in the chat, undefeated. I mean, I love the way they have been playing as of late. How do you not love Flau'jae? I mean, she's everything and more. I also love the deals now she's doing with Unrivaled.
Yeah, she's so intentional. And you don't want to talk about podcasts. Her podcast is really good too. I actually use it a lot when I'm calling games just for research because she talks to so many different players and you get to hear different perspectives on them. So shout out to her.
And you have Aneesah Morrow, of course, who's just like a walking double-double at all times. So that's a team, once SEC play starts, I think is going to be a big problem. I kept Notre Dame in my top 5 because they just beat Texas and they had them in my top 5, correct?
Those 2 losses that they had, though.
So they had these 2 losses.
There's
right?
a lot of talk about that.
Let's talk about it because I think it's a good point. You lose in these MTEs. MTE stands for multi-team event. And most teams will go over Thanksgiving and they'll go play a couple of games. I think they're difficult. They're important to schedule because it's kind of like your closest thing you can get to like an NCAA tournament style or like a conference tournament style early on to test your team. But I think these games are tough turnarounds. It's no excuse for obviously for losing. Like, you should win those types of games if you're a top team in the country. But I think making a statement win against a top 5 team after losing to Utah, who's likely an NCAA tournament team, and TCU, who just was handed its first loss, those aren't bad losses. So, like, to me, that's where my logic and reasoning goes into. I don't know, Texas, the SEC is going to be fascinating. I know we're going to get into a little more of it here, but between Texas and South Carolina and LSU, like, oh my gosh, who's going to win that league? I don't know. It's a
game. That's why I love it. Like, we can talk and chit chat all we want about it. We got to wait and see what happens. I still think South Carolina is the front runner in terms of the SEC and winning that conference.
Also, by the way, Notre Dame to 5. I'm just so impressed with the guard play. Like, those 3 guards, they blow my mind. I've seen them in person, and when you have great guards, that really elevates everything for you as a team.
Okay, drum roll for our On Her Turf moment. It's something that we do each and every episode. On Her Turf is the women's empowerment brand and platform that is sponsored by NBC Sports and powered by NBC Sports. And this one is special to me. It's personal. We've got 2 of my really dear close friends coming on, and we're going to spotlight referees. And you may be wondering, Zora, why in the heck are we using time to spotlight referees? But it's because they're a crucial, important part of our game. And a lot of the people that are officiating, have ties to basketball, and not just to basketball, to women's basketball. And they love this sport just like you and I do. And they have an interesting perspective on it. So here's our chat with Kelsey Harris and Deanna Jackson. Okay, so these two referees are not just referees. They happen to be my best friends as well, Kelsey Harris and Deanna Jackson. Thank you so much for doing this. Both of you all are referees in women's college basketball. You have a lot of ties to the game. And my whole thought process with this, I think, Meghan, you're aligned. It's like refs are humans too, right? And they love the game the same way. And as we all grew up playing basketball, and we all try to figure out ways to stay involved with the game. And Meghan and I, we do it through broadcasting, and you two do it through refereeing. So Kelsey, I would love to hear your background. Obviously, we're college teammates at Elon. You've worked in a number of spaces involved in the game. What brought you to want to transition into refereeing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Z. As a former player, I wanted to play the game as long as I could. I played overseas for a few years. I actually coached for a little bit as well locally, and then played like rec league ball, like every washed up former player does, as long as you can. And so I got to that point where I was like, all right, like maybe my playing days are ending, and another way to stay involved would be officiating. And so, like I said, for the love of the game, I wanted to stay involved as long as I could. I worked in athletic administration as well, so I knew kind of the behind the scenes of how to get started. But yeah, like I wanted to stay involved as long as I could, and officiating helped me to do that.
You worked at the ACC, by the way. I want to plug a big conference. Yeah, go ahead, Meghan.
Oh, well, I was going to say, first off, and it was fun because at the NCAA tournament last season, I was in Columbus calling that region for ESPN. Kelsey was one of the site reps there. And so her and I quickly bonded over being friends with Zora. So that was very exciting times. Deanna, same with you. Like, how did you get into this? And what people don't realize, like, you just reffed in the Olympics as well for 3x3, which is absolutely insane. So kind of your background and what made you want to get into this.
Yeah, so I actually was a middle school and a high school basketball coach, and just got approached to, go do a USF team camp and make some side cash. And then that led just to meeting the right people. And then they got me into a college camp that summer, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the challenge of officiating. And it just kind of completed the game for me from a player, coach, and then the officiating perspective, tying it all in. I caught the bug. I fell in love with it.
And what conferences are both of you all refereeing? And like in a typical weekend, how many games could that be?
Well, yeah. So I'm in 12 different Division I conferences. In any given week, I'm normally working between, I would say, 3 to 5 games a week.
And in what conference? So SEC, Sun Belt. You've done CAA too, right?
Yeah. So like Big South, SoCon. So just kind of wherever. I predominantly stay in the Southeast region. Just kind of mix in between the conferences in that area.
And then Kelsey, what has your trajectory been from going to administration, now getting your start in refereeing, a lot of D2, but now this season, more D1?
Yep. So like I said, having that background in the administrative route, like I knew the steps to kind of take and knew the behind the scenes of it that a lot of people don't really know. And so Deanna talked about going to a college camp and just being able to really break down the officiating as an art, right? Like, what do you do with your hands? How are you reporting? What is your, all the rules? I mean, 100% knowing the rule book, but also all the intangibles. But like I said, breaking it down from step one and taking that class and doing middle school basketball, doing youth basketball, and then working your way up is really how you start. You just get started one day and then you work your way up and then eventually work college, hopefully.
It's so funny because I'm of the belief everybody wants to blame the officials for everything in a game, right? Especially fans, coach, you're never going to make everybody happy. But I'm actually of the belief that officiating in women's basketball is actually really good. People just don't know the rule book. And, as broadcasters, we sit through meetings at the beginning of every season. With Big Ten Network, we sit Patty Broderick, head of Big Ten officials, and she goes through the rules with us. And so it's pretty clear cut. Can you please take us through what an off season looks like for you all? What's required in order to officiate in these leagues at the college level, all the things?
Yeah, so it's a huge investment. Like we all look at officiating as our business. So we invest our time and our resources into it. So we have to pay to attend camps all throughout the summer where we're officiating, we're getting classroom time, we're getting training. But we're paying and we're having these AAU parents and stuff yell at us as well. But we're actually out there, in an actual training environment. And then outside of that, we do so many Zoom calls, preseason meetings, study groups. So we put in a lot of time and effort, a lot of film review. It's a lot that goes into our preparation as well. And it continues throughout the season for pregame, postgame. It's never ending.
How are you all held accountable? So, like as broadcasters, say, we make a call on the air that, our bosses don't like, they'll let us know about it. How are you all held accountable if you call a foul at the end of the game where the contact wasn't justified?
So I guess I'll take that one too. But it's that's a hot topic right now with accountability for sure. It's with judgment, I think on a decision. We are definitely can have conversation about that, but it's not so much usually leads to a suspension because it's more judgment. But if we misapply rules, then we definitely can get suspended a game or multiple games, or eventually if you have too many of those mistakes, you could get go from a conference as well. But every game, though, coaches have the ability to send in plays, and we have to respond to plays that come through our coordinator. So there's a lot of accountability we aren't just out there blowing our whistle and just doing whatever. I mean, it's a whole lot that goes into it.
Kelsey, can you speak to the travel that you guys have to do as well? I mean, we talk about our broadcasting schedule. Zora and I are all over the place, but I mean, you guys are, reffing 3 to 5 games a week. You got to be getting those frequent flyer miles, say that 5 times fast, frequent flyer miles in.
Yeah, I mean, it gets really crazy, and especially depending on the level that you're working. Thankfully, North Carolina, there's so many schools that are around us, Division 1, 2, and 3. It's a lot of miles in the car for me. But higher up, Division 1, Power 5, you're flying from game to game, and depending on game times and the quick turnaround, you may have officials that are being really creative to get from one game to the next. Like imagine you have 5 p.m. tip in Iowa, and you have to be in Miami on a Sunday at 1 p.m. So sometimes that turnaround can be really tricky. You got to get creative with some flights. You may have to take a flight to the next closest city and then drive the next couple hours. Like I said, just depending on what those flight times look like. So it can be really tricky during the year, but it's a lot of time on the road and a lot of time away from families too.
So I'll see a referee like you said, that exact scenario, Meghan. I'm like, somebody's in Iowa for a night game on a Saturday, and then they have a day game on a Sunday. And I'll text Kelsey and Dan, like, how in the world do they teleport? Because we understand, like, Meghan, you and I know all the flight paths, right? So we're like, there's no flight.
Travel agency, yeah.
Iowa to Miami. I want to be respectful of your time. I just want to wrap up with, how do you handle, and both of you can take your own perspective on this, how do you handle being the scapegoat of a result sometimes? Like, people don't walk into games and are excited to see the referees. That doesn't necessarily happen. There's a lot of maybe even yelling at you all, verbiage, all the different things, because whether it's coaches, players, parents, spectators, you all are not people's most favorite, role in a basketball game. How do you handle that, knowing you're just trying to do your job?
I can go first, or you want to
go first? Yeah, you go for it.
Oh, okay. All right. So for me, I just don't take it personal. That's the number one for me. It's just keeping that in mind, and it's not personal, but also understanding that, to have a basketball game, you need to have referees. Like you need officials on your games. And so for us being out there, like for me, especially, it's the next closest thing to playing again. I love it. I enjoy it. It's a challenge. My goal is to try to get every call right, knowing that there will be mistakes, but just trusting that, it's for the good of the game. We are there to service the game and keeping that in the forefront. And also knowing that it's also easier to officiate from your couch when you have instant replay. All those things combined. So I don't take it personal, but like I said, their mistakes do happen, but I don't take it personal.
Deanna?
Yeah, we know what we sign up for, right? But at the end of the day, like we are the hardest critics on ourselves. So when we make those game deciding calls that whether they're right, wrong. I mean, we're going to beat ourselves up if we're wrong. And at the end of the day, I would say more times than not, we're probably right. They just might not like the outcome. But we're hard on ourselves. So we also have to live with that. And that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, is like how much we're striving for perfection as well. So it is unfortunate sometimes, when we have to make those split-second decisions. But we also have to live with that too. And we're never happy with ourselves if we make those wrong decisions, especially in those pivotal moments.
You guys have one of the hardest jobs out there. And like you said, it's easy for me to sit there and be like, well, that was clearly a block, or that was clearly a charge, when I get to watch it in slow motion from 6 different angles. But no, what you guys do is very difficult and just continues to elevate the game. And thank you for taking the time to chat with us and break it all down. So fun. Zora, great idea.
Hey, no, these ladies were perfect for our On Her Turf spotlight. And I love what Kelsey said, like servicing the game. And it's the closest thing to playing. Like for me, when I get behind the mic and that red light comes on, it's the only thing that gives me that same adrenaline rush as knocking down a 3-pointer, And we knew, we knew where we played. We knew our skill sets, right? We knew the W probably wasn't in our future. We're playing professionally for a long time, but to be able to stay involved in the game is the biggest blessing. And I think we could all relate to that. So thank you both so much. See you later at Mariah.
First off, just such great people. And I know you're very good friends, but I love this perspective because we are all guilty of sitting at home or at a game yelling at the refs, because that's just like what you do. And it's important to remember, like they're not just grabbing Joe Schmo off the street to get there. They're evaluated, they're penalized, they're talked to if they do make mistakes. So everyone's just trying to work in this beautiful basketball ecosystem. So interesting to hear what they have to go through on their end in order to get to games and to learn the rules and implement them.
Yeah, and I will fully admit, like, I've got close friends that are referees, and I still, get mad at the TV if I'm watching a game, or even on a broadcast. Sometimes you're questioning why something happened. And half the time, there's a reason for it, and half the time, maybe they just missed it, right? Humans make mistakes. Who's got next? Meghan, you came up with the idea for who's got next this week, and I love what you came up with, because I think it's spot on right now. It's not usually we do a player or person, but this week it's a team.
I am fascinated by the Tennessee Lady Vols because they are absolutely killing it right now. First off, undefeated, just cracked the AP Top 25 at number 19. They're ranked for the first time in a year, which ends the longest drought in school history.
Wow.
Crazy. Keep in mind, new head coach Kim Caldwell just took over this offseason, and it's unique because she's the first head coach hired at Tennessee for the women's basketball team with no connection to Pat Summitt. So coming in, there's a lot of questions on what this would look like. Kim Caldwell has a very unique style. She presses. She does a hockey lineup changing, meaning 5 in, 5 out. This team plays fast. My goodness gracious. They are playing so hard, pressing, picking up full court. They can only play for about 2 to 3 4-minute stretches because of how hard they play. The conditioning this offseason was insane, apparently, in terms of what was required of them to pass certain tests. They shoot more threes than anybody in the nation right now, 37 a game nearly as a team. They're turning people over more than 28 times a game. In fact, against Iowa, they turned them over 30 plus times and scored more than 40 points off those turnovers. They just knocked off ranked Iowa, knocked off a really good Florida State team. So anyways, Tennessee Lady Vols, I'm fascinated by all of it. Shout out Kim Caldwell, who is giving birth to a whole baby in January. So she's doing all this 8 months pregnant. And I can't imagine. So shout out to the Lady Vols and what they've been able to do down there in Knoxville.
Yeah, you can sympathize with that, right? With having to travel and be passionate about your job. What I have so much respect for is obviously Tennessee is such a storied program. And you mentioned she's the first head coach in women's basketball history at that school to not be a descendant of Pat Summitt in some way. And it's this balance of you want to respect the history, right? That has to be first and foremost. You never want to forget where you came from and how Tennessee was built. And at the same time, she's bringing her brand of basketball, which has been on display in these first 7 games. And yeah, the rotations are fascinating to me. The way in which they play, And that game against Iowa, it was like they started the game turning the Hawkeyes over and they ended the game turning the Hawkeyes over. I mean, they just put the Jets on you. And that press, don't try to dribble through it. I mean, coaches say all the time, you got to pass to a press. You got to pass to a press.
I mean, Zora, how much did you hate getting pressed as a player? I hated it. It was the worst.
Yeah, and especially right before half court and right after half court. Come on, those are the trap areas. I don't mean to sound like a broken record. I'm just repeating what every coach has ever said to me.
No, well, listen, these are all important points. How do you break a press? But I love the fact that this team's really unselfish as well, Tennessee, because no one plays 30 minutes a game per se. Like there's so much rotation. There's so much happening. You have to be really unselfish to buy into this style. I didn't know how it would work. It was really, really good when she was at Glenville State Division II. Obviously at Marshall, it worked really well. I didn't know how it would translate over. So far, my goodness, it is cooking. Excited to see what they do in SEC play, but shout out Tennessee.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A great Got Next segment. We're in the thick of December. A lot of great matchups. We'll have a lot to break down next week. As always, let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, go back and forth on, any answers that we can give you. Have a great, healthy week, and we'll see you next time. I'm Zora, she's Meghan, and this is
Got Next.
All the best.